how is the situation with like, because you mentioned you studied in Miami also, like are architectural tuitions also one of those extremely expensive one that you end up with huge student debt in the States, or is it still doable? I mean, I've had some people from the States, but um, the one we had studied way back in the days, and the other one was a girl that works at big New York, and she got a what is it called, like a student, not a loan, but she got like some financial support because she was a
Sure.
extremely talented girl. So is it like, because for us in Europe, especially in the European Union, so to say, we don't get this concept of a student loan and student debt, because more or less in every single country here, studying it's almost for free. Let's say, like it's
That's
somehow
nuts.
it's not for like in Germany. I can tell you, in Germany it's for free, because we you pay like 400 euros a semester, which is $400 now, and you get like a ticket with which you can go into museums, whether for free or for lower prices. You can go to the cinema on certain days for lower prices. You can travel all the public transportation for free. And so out of this $400, I think something like 50 or 100 goes to the university, and everything else it's sort of
That
supported.
is
Yeah.
crazy. No,
And in
it's
Italy it's
definitely
different. In Italy, because I studied both in Germany and Italy, and in Italy it was like based on your family income. If you're part of a family, like I think everything is based on the country, and because Italy it's more like structured, like you stay with your family until you're not done with.
I
I
see.
think you count part of your family as long as you're living on the same address. So or as long as you're registered on the same address. So it's based on your family income. So if you come from a rich family, I think the maximum you can pay was 3,000 euros a semester, which is $3,000. And there were different like levels based on whether you're poor or rich. And then you have the books, of course, but you can always go to the library, get a book, and then figure out which is the one copy shop that don't care, and just go and make a photocopy of it. And like it's like you can, ironically, you can study even if you don't come from like a super rich family, which is so funny
Yeah.
because you would think the opposite based on the American dream. So I'm curious, like how it is the situation with architecture schools in the States.
It's definitely the opposite. It's a we have like a messed up mindset here, which is it's just an expectation that to go to college, you just you take on a huge amount of debt. Like that's just what everyone does. We have an issue with debt in general here in the States, like in terms of using credit cards and stuff. Just it's an expectation that everybody just runs up a ton of debt on stuff. But universities is one of the biggest issues. Obviously, it's like a big political thing right now. But like for example, it depends a lot on what school you go to. So if you go to like a bigger, well-known, more respected school, you're going to be paying double or triple of what a smaller, much smaller school, less known, would cost. But even with that, I remember I applied to 4 universities back in so when I was trying to get my master's. I applied to 4 different places. So this was in 2007. I remember one school was going to cost $40K a year, $40,000 a year.
$40,000 a year.
Yes, that was for 3 years.
That's like three
Um,
cars. Good one, like Mustang.
the other school was 30,000 a year, or 2 of them was 30,000 a year, and then the one I went to, the reason I went there is they offered an assistantship, which meant like I could work at the library. I ended up working in the workshop of at Miami University. This is Miami University of Ohio, not Miami Dolphins, Florida. This is Miami, Ohio. But I worked in the wood shop, which is where I learned all my carpentry and stuff that I do in my house now. And that covered half of my tuition, just doing that several hours a week. So that's ultimately why I went to Miami. But I think nowadays things have gotten even more expensive. I know there's schools that are probably like $60,000 a year, if not more.
But so what do you get that for? Like, do you get it pure? Do you get everything included in that at least? Like, do you have to still then buy books and stuff like that? Or
so usually it includes housing. So like if you're staying in a dorm, sometimes that's usually for undergraduate. Graduate programs usually you don't stay in dorms. So you got to cover the cost of your housing. Sometimes it includes food, sometimes it doesn't. Almost always it doesn't include books. That's just like tuition, man.
That's incredible.
It's nuts. So there's so many people that are so now there's ways to get scholarships and that kind of stuff, but it never covers the entire cost or even like a large proportion of it. And not everyone gets scholarships. So just about all students are graduating with huge amounts of debt, but a lot of them are like 6-figure debt, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's kind of the issue is like everyone that's graduating, they're trying to start life out and they already have essentially a mortgage.
Yeah.
Without owning a house. They're paying these huge amounts of monthly costs. And on top of that, they got to somehow get their lives started and start buying houses and having kids and stuff. And they're just already like so far behind.
But my logic would say, okay, they have studied, they've paid a bunch of money for tuition. And I mean, if we don't count also the money that they didn't earn in that time because they were studying, would lead me to thinking that in America, an architect would earn a lot of money in order to be able to easily, like not easily, but at least comfortably pay back this debt. Or is not that the case? Because here in Germany, on average, you go between, let's say, if you're a beginner, you would start around 40K, let's say, a year, and after taxes that goes down to maybe 30 something or 30, and then if you're advanced you can go up to, I don't know, 90K a year, something like that, which after taxes will be like, I don't know, 50 maximum.
Yep.
I don't know, is it more or less the same wage in America for architects, or is it way more so that, I mean, it's makes sense to go study?
It definitely depends on where it's at. Like if you're in a big city like New York or Boston, like you might start out at, right out of school, you're probably starting out at 70.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in that world anymore, so I know less about it. But when we're hiring people, we kind of have to have a little bit of perspective on what architecture offices are paying because we're sometimes competing against them in terms of people. And then depending on how far it also depends. Is it a big office? If you're working your way up in a big office, you'll definitely get in the 6 figures after 4 or 5 years. But when you're living in a city like Boston, the salaries are higher, but that's because the cost of living is so much higher.
Yeah.
And so rent for so I live in a town that's just outside of Boston. I still take the bus in. So I'm still connected to the city through public transportation and whatnot. But if I were trying to rent a place in this town, it would be 3,000 or 4,000 a month. So, like, again, you may be making more, but you're paying so much more in rent, or you can't even buy a house. Houses are so expensive here now. Like, it's almost impossible for someone out of school to buy a place. And then on top of that, now you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans that you're also trying to pay off, along with trying to pay these huge high rents. I don't know. Like, people are paying off student loans for like 20 or 30 years. I mean, it's like lasting such a huge chunk of their life. So then, in the news recently, President Biden paid off like $10,000. I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket for a lot of these people. Like,
how much did he pay?
10,000.
Well, that's like, I don't know, not even a semester.
Right. Well, so for some people, they're not going to these big schools, or they're not getting architecture degrees. Like, their loans might be 20 or 30,000, in which case that would make a big difference. But, for a lot of other people, I don't know of a lot of people that have student loans less than 50 or 60,000. A lot of them are over 100,000 in student loans, in which case this 10,000 just doesn't really.
But this is like ridiculous, because I mean, and I guess that you have some sort of interest on that loan, so it's not actually, it's even more. And this is like, for me, because I'm originally from Bulgaria, which is an Eastern European country, and I was born in the 90s. So I grew up like with really the American dream, just because like watching American movies, everything was coming from the States, and it was looking so much flashier and so much like different than what was surrounding us, that it's been always like so fascinating. And now I listen to a lot of podcasts from the United States, like the Joe Rogan Experience. There is Alex Friedman show, and they discuss sometimes this topic.
Listen to those all the time.
And it's weird, because it feels sometimes crazy that it feels like the people in America live in their own bubble. Like, they think if like we have rather socialism or capitalism. But I mean, I live in Germany and in Italy, and they're definitely not socialist countries. But I feel it's fair to give the opportunity to every single person to go to a higher education and improve their life status, instead of labeling that as a socialism, because it's not. It's actually, if you would think about it, it would be like the most American thing to do, because what is your, like, let's say if you're from a family that's not so wealthy, what is your fault for it? You have to have like the opportunity at least to try to get better. And in this condition, it's extremely difficult, because I personally also don't come from a very wealthy family, and we sacrifice all the sacrificable, even for this little tuition. Like, I wouldn't have an iPhone, for example, but I would go to university, and I think it's a little bit sad. In Europe we don't get two things from the States, like the student thing. No, three: student debt, health insurance. How it's possible that you don't have it? Like, I mean, I guess it's right to have, like, if even in Europe we have like this mixed system. So if you want to go to this one super good doctor, then you have to have your own money and go and pay, or you have like an insurance that will cover that you won't die. Like, and also we have like, if you're sick, you have like sick days, so it doesn't count. Like, we don't have limit on sick days. If you're sick, you're sick. And that was crazy. And then also the guns thing, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I'm coming to the States and I'm going to be driving a car. So I'll show like a couple of tutorials. What do you need to do when you get pulled over, if you get pulled over? Because here we never think like, oh, I have to keep my hands visible or stuff like that. Or if it's like extremely rare that police officers shoot someone or kill someone just for the simple fact that just a very few people might have a gun and they will own it illegally, so they probably deserve to be shot if that happens. But so it's really, to me, it's really fascinating to to learn more about these things from somebody that lives them, because I think maybe I'm biased because I live in this system.
I mean, going back to like the student loan thing, I think there's like a big cultural thing where we just have to get ourselves out of this mindset, because there are ways to go to college for much, much cheaper, but it's like this kind of like this dumb status thing of like, I want to go to this cool university because they have a badass football team and they have an amazing amenities, amazing gyms, student centers. And so all my friends are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to go here. So, I'm going to do the same thing because I want to go where my friends are. There's this momentum that it's just like, that's what you do when you graduate high school. You go to the most exciting university you can. And I think there's too much money wrapped up in all of this. Like when you talk about like health insurance and that kind of stuff, the system we have here is just so nuts. But we're not even talking billions. We're talking trillions of dollars wrapped up in how this is set up. And trying to undo this and set up something new, it's just not realistic. Like it's not going to happen. And so it's the same with the universities. I mean, these universities, they're paying like football coaches millions of dollars, like almost more than NFL coaches. Like that's how big this stuff has gotten. And so of course you're going to keep charging insane tuitions. Like what is the government going to do? Like it's just, there's too much money. And it's somehow the culture of stop spending all this money on education, or, you can go to this college over here that's 1/10 of it. It's obviously, it doesn't have the same name and it doesn't have all these amenities and it doesn't have an amazing football coach, but you're not also going to be leaving with a ton of debt. And just no one here wants to do that. They want to go to the exciting university.
And if you want to become like an archivist artist, you don't even need a degree. You just need to learn the software. Basically, go through your website tutorials and you get to go.
I mean, I had my choice to go to a bunch of really cool universities, but like I said, they were so expensive. And this one university, I couldn't be happier going to Miami. But the reason I ultimately went was because they offered me the assistantship to work while I was there. Too many people just don't care about that. They're fine building up the debt now, and then they complain once they graduate. I mean, there's bigger issues at hand than it's a cultural thing.
I can give the suggestion to American students to come to Europe and study. They can easily get a visa, and it's gonna be way cheaper. And we don't have American football teams at our universities. We have no teams.
My business partner Andrew, his daughter is going to study in Paris, and it's way, 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 way cheaper than anything she would have went to here.
And imagine that Paris is like maybe the most expensive you can get, because you have to live in Paris. And I guess this is a little bit more expensive. But still, like I know, like I've seen documentaries here about American students going to study in countries like Slovenia, or even Slovenia, I think is completely free. So they go there and learn stuff like veterinary and they just, I mean, I think I would do that if I were like in the States and I couldn't afford to go to college and I wanted to study, and I would go somewhere else, and maybe then it's not fully recognized in the States as a degree, but still you will get something. I mean, all the people that get green card and are educated, they're getting like good jobs. So I think I think that's a wise thing to do. Yeah, so it's to me it's really fascinating that it's how it works in the States. And I think that also a problem is that you guys are like in such a huge country that before you get out of the country, it takes such a long time. And even if you could travel for hours by plane and you're still in the same country. And if you go on the north, Canada is pretty much the same. So you have to go maybe in Mexico to see something different. And for us, it's so much different because I can take a car and drive just 3 hours in direction west, and I get to France, and the people there would talk another language, and they will have completely different culture. Or you fly 1 hour south to Italy, and it's a completely different country. So I think this is also something that I guess it's easy to get in your own bubble when you're in the States.
For sure. For sure.
Hey there, thank you very much for watching this clip. If you have enjoyed it, you can watch the full unedited podcast episode over here. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much.